Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to a Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So I'm your host, Karen Roberts, and I am a holistic weight loss and transformation coach. And I suppose I go in for a unique all-in approach, as in we focus on the mental, the physical, and the spiritual aspect. There's always got to be a little bit of woo-woo. I think everybody needs a little bit of woo-woo in their lives. So this radio show is no different, really. So each week, my guests will be discussing various topics around health, mental health, confidence, success. And again, they will giving their perspective, either mental, physical, spiritual, or any combination of those three. So I love that our guest today is, as I said, is focusing on mental and spiritual, but I bet when we actually get into it, there is a physical aspect in there somewhere as well. So Chris, welcome to the show. If you could share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, please.
Sure. Thank you for having me, Karen. I totally appreciate it. My name's Chris Templeton. I'm the founder of 3 questions in a model that I call the Stories We Tell. And in 2003, my fabulous, as she likes to call herself, evil stepmother, provided me a copy of The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I read that book, and there's a bit of woo-woo in there, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. But what really kind of kicked me in the head when I read it was we are really good at driving ourselves crazy in certain parts of our lives. In other parts, we're in a pretty good place. And running a business and raising children and being married, looking at this idea of, oh my God, I'm the one that's making myself crazy about, my employees, or why did Betsy do this, and the kids, oh God, why are they behaving that way? That kind of thing that we all do, that smile, we all relate to it. And to recognize that I was the one taking something small for the most part and turning it into something gigantic. What do they say? A mountain out of a molehill. It really hit me. And so he talked a little bit about stories, and he also talked a little bit about the pain body, which I think of as the ego. And he also talked about stories. And so one of the things that happened over time is I came up with these 3 questions. What's the story I'm telling? Is it serving me in this moment, right now? Don't care past or future. Is it serving me right in this moment? And if it's not, is there a more authentic story that I can tell that will serve me? And if it serves me, it's far more likely to serve those around me too. So that was the basis of this. I am, just to be clear, I am not a therapist. I'm not a coach. This is not a belief system. This is simply 3 questions and a resulting model, which we'll discuss, that are about common sense, about simplicity, and really the way I like to describe it is I feel like I'm putting on a clear pair of glasses, not dark glasses with clouds over me, and not rose-colored glasses where everything's beautiful and wonderful, because it's not. And really more authentically being able to look at where I am and, oh my God, the change in how we perceive the world is dramatic. And it's been dramatic for me from a business standpoint, my relationships, my raising my kids and our friends. I'm so blessed to have had this practice for the last 18 years. So
wow, love that. I mean, I do think that's pretty much everything in a nutshell, really. We could
It
end it
is.
here because
Yeah,
it's
I'm
amazing
done.
that we all the problems that we have, we don't actually. I love that we don't actually have any problems, especially in the now. And and I know we're only human, so we are conditioned to go over past events, and we are conditioned to worry about things in the future, which is just craziness. Actually, when you step back and look at it, you think, why? It hasn't even happened yet. But it just all, I love the fact that it's all about questions. And that's what we need to be asking ourselves, is because we do get caught up in these stories that we tell ourselves. And I love that you just said there as well about, it is about perception. It's everything comes down to perception, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think the thing that's so interesting is that most people don't understand how they color their world, whether it's with, dark glasses or with rose colored. That's okay. That color I like. But when you start to recognize your role in creating your own craziness, and the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is it's typically just in certain places, like it may be with money or with relationships or with health. Unfortunately, if we practice those stories enough, we have a tendency to generalize it. Oh my God, I just, how am I ever going to be what I want to be, kind of thing. And
Mm,
so that kind of thinking can really take over your life, and we see it in people all the time. We see people who live super negative. We see people who live super positive and everything's great, but it's not. That kind, and we see it, and it's not easy to fix, but it's fixable for the most part. And being able to recognize it is just such a weight off your shoulders when you start to go, oh, I can practice to do something a little more authentic and that serves me.
brilliant. And like you say, I mean, nothing is going to change overnight, because all those stories, like you say, they could have been repetitive stories that we've been telling ourselves since childhood that are no longer
Absolutely.
serving us. And we might not even be aware that we're actually even telling those stories because it is so consistent. And I'd even go a stage further, which I know I do. So I hold my hands up to this because, I joke about things, but I could still tell a story in a jokey way, but I recognize that's still not serving because
Yeah.
it's still negative. Just because
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a light of the situation, it's still something that is not going to help long term. But I love that it's yeah, we're all living our lives through habitual patterns. But to the listeners out there, to know that you can change, right? Every
Right.
single person can change if you consciously make a decision to consistently try these tools, I suppose, that you're gonna, I'm sure, be sharing with us. And things will change, not overnight, but anything worth having, right, is
Is worth a little practice, a little work, and that's
yeah.
all good, right? Absolutely. And what I'd like to do is just read you a favorite quote of mine. There's a guy by the name of Viktor Frankl, wrote a book called Man's Search for Meaning.
Huh?
He was a psychologist and a psychiatrist. I think he was actually a psychiatrist. He was in the concentration camps during World War II. And one of the things that he walked out of there, he was able to retain meaning through the whole experience. Didn't mean he enjoyed it, saw horrific things, and also saw some of the most graceful things. Somebody giving a piece of bread to somebody who was on the verge of dying. Like the amount of grace that took for somebody who was already hungry to save a little piece to give to somebody. Amazing. Like there's such strength in the human spirit, but he also saw the other side of that, where people let go of life, who were complete victims. And one of his quotes, which is my favorite on the planet, is between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Oh my God. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So when you think about what he's saying and what you were just saying, we all have scripts and we have a tendency to be triggered by something. And we just automatically run a script about, oh, this is the worst thing ever. Why are you behaving that way? Why am I? And such blah, 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 blah. And so when you recognize that there's no space, that I'm living by default in certain parts of my life, when I start to recognize that when I create that space, things get better. And so even in the face of being in these concentration camps, he was able to create that space and be able to retain meaning in his life and come out on the other end and really do some amazing things. And, it's what you're talking about. There's tough stuff that happens. Nobody's going to deny that. And that's one of the things that concerns me most about, things like the positivity movement, thinking positive, is that, if we're not thinking authentically, like really looking at the tough stuff and finding, as my good friend says, the gift in it, and there's a gift in almost everything if we look for it. um, it just puts us in a place where we are feel like victims, like we're powerless, and it's no place to live. And yet we all do at some point. All of us share. This is universal. There's nobody that doesn't experience this. But the beauty is, we can take a story that didn't serve us when we were a kid. It may have served us to when we were a kid, doesn't serve us now, and begin to change it.
There you go. And it is it's empowering, isn't it? It's the problem, you sort of slightly mentioned it just there, is we can have a victim mentality because, yeah, look, everyone's got a story, right? And some are horrendous things that some people have gone through over others. But I mean, it's not a competition, right? It's what it does to you. But the thing is with this realization, and what a phenomenal guy to even be able to have that mental strength to be able to do that under those circumstances. I mean, like, just total hats off. I mean, it's because a lot of people will use the excuses of XYZ and have that, but there's no power, nobody's going to come and save you. Nobody's coming to save you. You can only save yourself. So having that attitude, it's empowering, isn't it? Because it's like, well, it's, it's going to come from within. I can sort this out. And I would agree. I mean, I'm very much I would say, quite a positive person. But I mean, nobody can, I think, go through the last 2 years without some dips. And I think if anything that we've learned over the last couple of years with regards to mental health is that, it's okay. If you're having a bad day, you're having a bad day. It's okay. It's always a new tomorrow. Rather than trying to force pretending to be happy if you're not. I mean, there's good points for that, and there's, like you say, it's not real and it's not authentic. Um, but there's going to be pros and cons for that one, isn't there?
Well, yeah, and I mean, that's the thing is if you look at it, if we kind of take a step back with these questions, like, what's the story I'm telling? What's my thinking? What am I visualizing? Is it something that is this a way I've behaved in a story I've told for a long time that now isn't serving me? May have served me as a kid, or, dealing with uh, going through school and bullying or whatever the case may be. But I have the ability, with understanding my thinking, and that if it's not serving me, to start to rewrite those stories in ways that are authentic. And that doesn't mean pushing away the negative stuff. It means looking at it lightly in the face, not confronting it, because that doesn't serve us either.
No,
But when I look at it and I can say, gee, that really was awful, and I never want to go through that again. And we all have situations like that. But when I can look at that and say, how can I create a story that honors that and also helps me to move forward at the same time. And it can be little or big. It doesn't matter, but it's a practice. And one of the things from my standpoint is I always, if people walk away from this with one concept, please start to look at your life as practice. Practice, practice, practice. It gives you all kinds of room to make mistakes, to run those scripts by default, and then to look at them an hour later or 5 minutes or decades later and to begin to change them. And so, practice is really what we're talking about is, how do I come up with some tools that can help me to practice more authentically.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why we all think that we've got to do things perfectly first time. Like, who does that? Like, come on, let's
Right.
keep it real.
Right.
Nobody, you learn at the end of the day, we're all human. There is a learning process to anything, and very rarely are you gonna get it right the first time. And again, it's okay.
Yeah. And
It's
and think
okay.
about it. When you have a victim mentality, or when you're like, I've got it, or I've or the other side, I've got to get it perfect every time, you are setting yourself up for failures that are magnitudes of order worse than when I say, God, I'm going to do my best, I'm going to figure it out, and I'm going to move on. I told you off the air that this morning I had a live Facebook Live thing, and I'm 20 minutes in, and it says it's not recording. Now, I could have, and probably would have 20 years ago, gone through the roof, thrown things, been super frustrated. So instead, I was like, okay, what's the solution here? Just try it again. Try it again. Couple of minutes in, it stops recording. Okay, now instead of getting mad there's some swear words were, right? I'm not denying that. But then the next thing was, okay, I need to get a note up on that board. I need to record that offline and then post it later, which I'll do after this. But you think about how angry people can get with something simple like that they don't have any control over. And
Right.
so not it's about not making yourself a victim of your circumstance, but moving forward. I know that I don't like what happened. I'm sure as heck going to try and figure out if there's things that I did on my end that are making that happen. I know that I've addressed the community with, oh my God, I'm so sorry this didn't work. And that they know that so I feel like instead of just being this ball of angst, I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do the best I can. That is good practice with me.
Oh, 100%. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got to remember that those feelings of frustration and anxiety and, go all through the list of negative, they don't feel good, right? Who wants to stay in that feeling place for too long? Look, we can all fluctuate. I am very much and I know that's a bad habit of mine. In certain situations, I can react. I'm at quite an instant. Whereas I need to create space sometimes
Right.
to calm. Mind you, the one good thing is that I never stay there long. I don't dwell. I don't stay there. So, we're all human. We can react to certain and then come back as long as we don't stay there too long because those feelings don't feel, who wants to, right? It's
Right.
much
But we
nicer to
don't.
have those feelings of calm and asking. I mean, I love that idea. It's about I mean, I know we were told that talking to yourself is a sign of a madman. I'm sure everybody thinks I'm completely crazy then because I talk to myself all the time. And it's okay to ask yourself questions. And that is going to be the start of, and it's just giving that space. That makes so much sense. I know it's something that I need to still practice on.
Good, and practice is good. And, that's the thing is that once you start to recognize that, gee, that's a place that I can be, but I don't have to give it as much power, that's really huge. One of the things that in my model is that with question 2, if you were to take a sheet of 8.5 by 11 paper or A4 paper and turn it sideways so it was in landscape mode,
Mhm.
top left, question 1, what's the story I'm telling? Left, middle, Is the story serving me in this moment? And bottom left, is there a more authentic story I can tell? At question 2, you can draw a horizontal line. And in that horizontal line, above it, I say if your answer is to the question, is this serving me in this moment, is no, that goes above the line. I call that little me land. That's where we all have a lesser version of ourselves, which is really why your audience is here, why I do what I do, why you do what I do, is to help to figure out how to take that little me part of my life and get it into balance and not feel like I'm so powerless and fear based and victimized. Below the line, if I say, oh, the story, and I'm not likely to ask the question when the story is serving me, but below the line, I say, if the answer is yes, I am telling a story that's serving me, that goes below the line, and that's authentic me. That's my authentic place where I live. And this is where people want to be. And one of the things that's so fascinating about little me land is that when you're in that thinking place, it's very binary, black and white. Like, I am in this crappy place, and I also have a third place called enlightened me, which is way down below the line. It's where flow is. It's where when we're newly in love. This, and in little me land, you're like, I just want to be enlightened. Oh my God, it's not going to work. You can't do it that way. But when you start to recognize that in little me land, there's value, all of the tough stuff that we've gone through, when we take those stories about those things and get authentic about them, weight lifts off my shoulders. I
Mm,
feel better. I feel more. But if what I do, and like you said earlier, if what I do is try to pretend that didn't happen and I'm not going to address it, there's this part of us that just holds it, and it's like a balloon. No, that didn't happen. Gets a little bit bigger. I don't want to deal with that. A little bit bigger. And then finally something happens, and oh my God, we go off, we're angry, we're rageful, and all of that air comes out of the balloon, and we're like, oh my God, what was that? That was weird. And that is exactly what we're trying to solve. So when we look at, you know, where we're at in the parts of our lives that are in little me land and trying to get to enlighten me, it doesn't work. But what if I can do is start to depower that part of us in little me land and start to move more of that story down below the line into authentic me land. I'm not denying anything. I'm at some level appreciative. Think about in America, the number of vets that come home with missing limbs and have been through horrible, horrible stuff, and they will almost all, a huge portion, tell them it was the most meaningful part of their life. What? How is that
mm.
possible? But there's camaraderie, there's all these things that they take meaning from, and that's all authenticizing your story about something that was really horrible.
Yeah, that's just, it is so, I mean, and that is the sort of, bit of a quandary, isn't it? Because you do think, well, I am the person I am today because I've overcome XYZ challenges. So would I not want them to have happened because I wouldn't be me? I mean, it is obviously none of us want, and obviously we want to protect our children and we want to wrap them in. We don't want anything bad to happen to anybody, do we? Of course not. However, there is always a flip side of it. And, all the old sayings are true. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. It does.
It really
It
does, doesn't
really
it?
does. And so you can't regret, things have happened. I can't regret any of them because, yes, I wouldn't be where I am today. So,
But here's the thing, think about it. What so many people do is they do regret it and they play that story over and over and over again in little me land, and they berate themselves or they berate others. There's tons of judgment. And so when you really hit it on the head in terms of, I've raised 3 children into adulthood now, and I don't want them to have tough stuff, but I do. I
Mm.
want because I wanted to be there to help them to figure out how to deal with that stuff in a way that served them, right? I mean, we so much of parenting these days is about keeping that bubble around our child and oh, they can do whatever they want and no boundaries and I just want to let them and these kids are crying for some structure in their life. And so when I can say, "Oh, dude, what a drag that my boy works at a very, very high-end restaurant and as a host, and the stuff that he sees, the entitlement, the attitudes, it makes him nutty. He cannot stand it. He's actually in the process of leaving that
Oh.
job. And, one of the things that we talk about is how by looking at it right in the face, like, you know, it's awful to see people behave this way, isn't it, bud? Yep. And isn't it fabulous to know that you see that and as a result, you will never behave that way? Yeah. And isn't it great to know that when you go into a restaurant for the rest of your life, you're not going to be that guy and you're going to be the one who knows how to work with a waiter, even the waiters that are having a bad day, and really make it something an experience that you create little bits of meaning, right? These little
Right.
things. And we don't but we say, "Oh, I can't believe they treated you that way, and that these people are so awful." And when we leave it at that, when we kinda leave it at that emotional place, it does not serve anybody. Is my
No.
boy struggling with this? You bet. Is dad here to help to talk him through how he can be more resilient and take value from that? Oh my god, it's a game changer.
Oh,
Total, total game changer.
well, you said a word right there, which I do think that is something that is missing from from a lot of kids, and again, it's our fault. Resilience,
Yeah.
because things have changed so much, and they do have so much freedom, and not just at home, but in the school system. I'm sure things are the same over there as they are here, and some kids, they know where they stand, they know their rights, and so there's no there are no there is very little discipline for some of them, and it's not and you're right, it's not serving them though, is it? It's not
Exactly.
helping them in the long term, and resilience seems to have gone. People just they can't seem to stand any kind of obstacle. They're sort of falling apart, and mental health is yeah, it must be on the rise. And I do think it's such a shame. I know we are talking about it more. Um, but the fact but in some ways, I am a little bit like, in some aspects, I think, is that helping? Because are we mollycoddling them? Are we? I mean, obviously, certain things we need to address, but there's got to be a line, as you say. From some things we're going to learn and grow stronger from. So we can't protect everybody from any little
And we
misdemeanor, from any
truly
little, it's
don't wanna do that. We
no.
think we do. We think that, "Oh my god, if I can provide, a risk-free life to my child."
Ugh,
Well, you know what? You can't. There's just no way, and the problem is exactly what you said, is that we then the kids get to a place where they have no tolerance for any deviant behavior. Now what we're seeing across the globe is, well, if you're not on my side, you don't even count. Oh my god, how in the world does that help us? and
yeah.
and when instead, I can say to my kids where they've dealt with somebody with bad behavior, you know you gotta give them some room. You gotta know that they're in little me land. One of the things that I love about this model is once you start to internalize it for yourself, you start to see the world and people's
Ah,
behavior in a completely different way. Like you understand, oh my God, that parent is in little me land trying his or her best to protect that child and not give them boundaries and blah blah blah. And it just doesn't serve the kid. Whereas when I come down below the line and I'm want my kid to be resilient, and I want them to be happy for the most part. I want them to be productive, and I want them to be able to handle things that are difficult in ways that serve them. Now we're changing how we do things, and we're doing it in a really lovely way. That's the beauty, is when I start to parent authentically and I'm willing to look at the stuff, the tough stuff, and to help my kid to get down below that line where they can be authentic. We think that we make everything above the line so damn complicated. Oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that. And it's really pretty damn simple. Like, look, is this serving you? Is this serving my child? Is this serving my partner or the people at work? And when all of a sudden, when you start behaving in that way and you start recognizing when people are a little me land and provide a place by being non-judgmental, by being open to what the story is. Guess what? People start coming down below the line with you because now they know that you're trustworthy and that you're not judging them, that you want to help to solve the problems and you're not focused on the fear and the victimization and the judgment. It's
Massive.
really, really huge, Karen. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine. So for you, I mean, so your program, this is the My Three Questions and a Model. Is that
Mhm.
what it's called?
Oh, the stories we tell.
Oh, the
All the
stories we
places
tell.
you'll go.
Oh, okay. Whatever. So
At some point,
whatever
I
you
think
want,
I might call it authentic psychology because there's,
whatever you choose to call
yeah,
it. So
yeah.
for you, then, why is your work so important? Why do you think that work is important to the listeners out there? How can this benefit them?
Well, you know, a big part of this is around, as it turns out, is around the ego. And we've forever talked about the ego is the enemy, and if I could just make the ego go away, and other people call it, Eckhart Tolle and The Power Now calls it the pain body. And oh God, is that the worst term for it? And inner critic, the inner bully. Like, there's a aspect of us that we typically call the ego, which I want to throw that concept away, and I want to call it instead the protector. So there's this part of us, fight, flight, freeze response. The amygdala is the part of the brain that's always, always, always looking for problems. Totally fear-based, like, is everything okay? And when you think about it, one of my favorite stories, my boy, I think third or fourth grade, glasses, darling. We're walking across the street from after the school's over, and somebody honks, and he spins around from being this beautiful little kid to this scowl. And then his teacher in the car waves at him because because she honked at him. And we all have it. We all have it. And when we frame it up as being the enemy, that it's something that we want to get rid of, first of all, it's never going to happen. It's just not. I mean, look, it may be for 10, 100, maybe 1,000, maybe 10,000 people are able to not work with, to exist without that part of them really going off. But if what you do is you say, look, this protector is there to serve me, and it's really, really good at finding problems, and it's really, really crappy at solving them, right? Then what I can do is I can start to say, what is this protector? And it's that what you were talking about. We all talk to ourselves. We all have an inner narrator about what's going on. And what I say is, when you go above the line into little me land, it's the protector taken over. And it can be really mild, like, oh no, we just need to be really great and everything's going to be wonderful. Or it can be rageful. Like, there's the really broad range of emotion that the protector has. But when we come down below the line, that range of emotion is much less. And that's a good thing. Like, we're not super happy, enabling, trying to make everything better. We're in a really below the line, nice place. And so if what we do is we take that protector and we put him on a pedestal, and we are like the counter agent at at an airport after you've gotten your flight canceled and you have no idea, and you march to the counter agent, and you just let that counter agent have it, even though they had nothing to do with what happened. And what that counter agent does is they zip it. They know that that balloon is full, and they let the customer talk. I'm so mad, and blah 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 blah, blah, and I can't believe I'm never going to fly. And then finally they get to the end of it, and they're like, oh. And then the counter agent says, let's see what we can do to help you. Now, if that counter agent had argued, that wasn't my fault, and I don't have any control over the weather. I mean, all kinds of places. And we have a tendency when we see somebody in little me mode with their protector going off, man, that lights our protector right up. And it's one of the big
Absolutely.
practices, right? To be able to
Hmm.
say, but when I recognize that that's what's going on, and I'm cognizant of that's how everybody works, then I just wait. I wait and let it all go, and I don't make light of it. I understand that that's what needs to happen for the protector to mellow out. Then I can move below the line, above the line, problem orientation, below the line, authentically solution oriented. And so when we do the same thing with ourselves, when we are really going off on ourselves or about somebody in our head, be the counter agent. Really listen.
Mm.
Really, really listen to what the protector's saying. Even if he's completely off base, swearing, telling you you're a piece of crap, and that person, listen and let it get out. Write by hand what the protector is saying in all its glory. And what happens is that air gets let out of the balloon, and I start to move myself closer to the line or even below the line. And when we start doing that, and we stop fighting that, stop resisting it, it's a really great place to be, and to be able to hear it and not react, right?
There you go. It's the reaction, isn't it? I mean, it's like, I suppose, again, all these sayings that we probably all heard from childhood, like, go and count to 10, or, walk away, if there was any confliction with at school with somebody. But it's all sensible advice, isn't it? Because actually what they're saying is create that space between the responding, because like you said, yeah, the moment somebody's up there, well, that's just going to cause somebody else to go up there and and it's just, no, there's no win. There's no winner. There's no winner.
Right. We
Oh,
all walk away feeling worse.
yeah. So this is all. It's all fantastic advice, by the way, because it is having that just allow, and it's making you a lot more compassionate as well, isn't it? Because you're recognizing in that person that, yeah, it's not them. It's just their.
And for both, for yourself, which is the most important place to start, is giving yourself some compassion, right? And when you can start to do that, one of the things that drives me crazy, it doesn't drive me crazy, but it's so hard for me to understand. And I don't think most people do. People say, oh, you just need to love yourself. Well, okay, if you can get there, good for you. But if what you can do in the meantime is appreciate yourself and why you're where you are, that helps to keep you below the line too, in an authentic place. And so, it's not that I'm against self-love. It's just that I think so many people, it's that binary thinking, well, I'm here, I can't stand where I am, and I just need to love myself. Well, you know what? You ain't getting there with that attitude, right? But when I
No.
can start to appreciate myself down below that line, then that's available to me. It's more available, that enlightened place where in America we say, this little light of mine. You familiar with that
Hmm.
term?
Yeah.
You want to let it shine. When you are below that line, there's a place in my model. It's a V, and at the base of the V, I think that's where this is the woo-woo part, Karen. I think
Ah,
that's
here it
where,
comes.
yeah, get ready for it. That's where God, infinite intelligence, source, whatever you want, the universe, whatever you want to call it, it's right at outside the base of that model, and it comes in, and when we're in flow or we're in love or we're just knocking out a project and time has just passed us by, we're right in that enlightened place. But it's so hard to get there when we're above the line in little me land. And so why
Ah,
even try? But
100%.
practice,
It's
practice, practice.
oh, there you go. I mean, that's yeah. That I'm with you 100%. Again, it's down to this whole. We have this tendency to think we're in control of everything. Again, our ego, and actually, it is when we, so like as you said, create a space, or just when we have these quiet moments, instead of creating, being up here, these stories that you're going over of what's happened today. And it is only once we calm, quiet, that connection to, yeah, I'm there, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, universal,
Well, and
your inner voice, your
yeah,
universal force,
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
It's all the same. We're all talking about the same thing. Um,
And that's the part of us, by the way, that knows the answer to, is this question, is this story serving me in this moment?
there you go.
You can't hide that part of you. You can make it really dark up above the line, but when I take the time to ask, is this serving me in the moment? That place down at the bottom that says, not really. It's okay if you want to be up there, because it's like this part of you down at the bottom, the enlightened part, it doesn't care if you're up above the line. It doesn't care if you're below the line. It's there for you no matter what. It doesn't
Yeah.
change anything above the line. We're turning on the dark switch.
That's the, yeah, great analogy. I mean, that is it. It's unconditional love. It's got our best interests at heart, and it knows best. But we think we know best. That's the
But that
danger.
part of that part that we think we know best, that's completely protector. That's
Yeah,
protector language. Are you kidding me? That's
absolutely.
not the way to do it.
That.
I know best. Think about it with parenting. Oh my God, how often do we, kind of the other side of the enlightened parent who just wants to give Jimmy all the room in the world and let him find his way. The opposite of that is, the parent who is like, feels like they know it all, and they're going to come at you and tell you what is what. And it's all, this is another thing that's so important. 90% of the protector's behavior is learned behavior. Like, my dad talked down to me like I was kind of a piece of crap in certain circumstances. And guess what? My my initial kind of approach with my kids behaving bad was to do what my dad did, because that's how I was programmed. I had a situation where my boy came to me in senior in high school. He said, and my wife, "Hey, is it okay if I don't walk the stage for graduation?" And instead of, where most, are you kidding? No, you have got to do that project for your senior year so that you can walk the stage. Instead, below the line, big smiles, me and Betsy. Yeah, dude, that's not happening. Well, you've got to do that project, but I will help you. I'll help you. He's going to build a shed, and that he could put tools in. And so we ended up doing that, a fair amount of it together. And one day, man, he's doing stuff, and I am starting to get spun. Like, the protector in me is kicking in, and I'm starting to tell myself stories, and I'm getting frustrated. Now, thank God I had this model available to me. It's like, wait a minute, is this serving me in the moment? No. And then I was like, oh my God, this is exactly how my dad treated me. So then to be able to look at that, say to my son, dude, I am so sorry that I'm behaving this way. I want you to know where it came from, and that I'm going to do everything I can to change it.
Wow.
Oh my, what a great thing for him,
Wow.
and what a
What a
great thing for me.
breakthrough.
And we had a ball doing the rest of the project. And any project like that looks simple and ends up being days and days and days. And we got it together. He walked the stage. It was really wonderful. So
Wow. I mean, that's actually pretty incredible. And that's the thing is, to one, being aware, and then to actually acknowledge it in the moment while it's happening, which is actually quite yeah, that's quite a challenging thing to do, because when you are in the
yeah,
moment, you are all up here. So to be able to spot it in the moment, change what actually changed? Nothing changed on the outside, but something changed on the inside. Phenomenal. And
And
then
it's
what a
practice.
lesson for your son. What a lesson for your son to actually
Absolutely.
see it. And for us to, as adults, as parents, hold our hands up and say, yeah, okay, I got it wrong. Sorry.
And the thing that's fascinating to me, I couldn't have done that without practicing this stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing that's so wonderful for Betsy and I is all three of our kids, our oldest was a real bear to raise, like really, really difficult. She'll tell you any day that she was a nightmare. All three of our kids love being with us and we love being with them. And you know what? If I had raised those kids from the little me place of the protector and you need to do this and I'm going to, we would not have the relationship we do. And I think about all the families who, they get together for Thanksgiving in America and it's just a nightmare. And it's because everybody in that situation is in little me mode because that's how they grew up. And it's sad, but it can be changed. It can
There
be
you go.
changed.
It can be changed. So if anybody's dreading what's coming up, I mean, yeah, I don't know why we don't have Thanksgiving. I mean, honestly. And then we've got Christmas coming up, but, it's all the same thing. It's
Same
when the
thing.
families get together. So if they haven't dealt with this, there's so many people that are dreading seeing their family, and that is a shame.
It is a shame.
And
It
that
makes
is
me
a
really
shame.
sad.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I've one of my children left throughout the sort of lockdown last year is with, as much as I love her boyfriend and I'm very happy for her, but we have to let them go, don't we? So
Yes,
I'm
we
looking
do.
forward to having both of them over at Christmas, so all of us together. And yes, I'm very thankful that we sort of have a similar approach, and not that it's been perfect going all the way through, of course not, but
And we don't want
also,
it to be.
no, we
When
don't, of
we're
course, and
authentic,
neither
we
do
we
we.
we look at those negative things and we're like, and we get and here's the other thing. If I hadn't done what I did with my boy at the time that we had this issue and I'm doing dad stuff, a month, a year, 10 years, I can still address it and change the story. This is the other thing that, people, well, what's done is done and it can't be changed. That
Mm,
is the biggest load of crap. We can
right.
always change our story. And, think about the people that you've seen at situations where two people have been really mad at each other and there's a misunderstanding and they realize it. And then they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And like we all want to be forgiving. We all want that connection. And that's the other beauty of this thing is that when I look at tough stuff from the past, I still today, whether the other person recognizes it or not, have the ability to change my story about it, to be regretful about it, to talk to them. What's in AA, one of the things that Alcoholics Anonymous, one of the things they do is they require everybody to write to every grievance that they had to write a note to people and think
Right.
about how freeing that is when you're not carrying it in little me land and have
Oh,
dealt with it in authentic land.
there you go. So many people just not forgiving things.
Yeah.
Trust me, I know a few people like that.
Right.
And they're not realizing that it's not even necessarily for them. It's for you. It's going to help you. It's like drinking poison and expecting them to die from it. You're the one that's dying from it, and you can change it by simply having this switch of the way you view it. And it is. So what you're doing. So explain to the listeners a little bit. So you have this program. What do? You say you're not a coach, but you're helping. I mean, what is the definition of a
So,
coach?
no, and I look, I would love for every coach on the face of the planet to have and use this model because it's such a lovely way to create. This is all about creating self-awareness, right? Because when I'm aware of the things that I do, no space between stimulus and response, when I become aware of those in a way that I'm not, I'm not doing it. Well, I've just got to get through this, and I blah blah blah. When I recognize that that isn't serving me, and I can use this model as a way to say, hey, where am I? Gee, is there a more authentic story I can tell? I love every coach. So what I'm doing is I will be at some point developing a course that people will be able to take. In the meantime, I'm just really hot on getting this message out to as many people as I can in a way. What I want people to look at me and go, damn, if he can do it, I can do it. Right. I don't want, this isn't, here I am to show you the light. Right.
You're not a
It's not what,
guru.
right. I don't want to be that. The beauty of this model is if you internalize it and you practice those questions and some of the other things that you can do to practice, what I'm saying is you have that at the base of that model where source and infinite intelligence is, you have access to all of that. And yeah, you may need to go see a coach, and it's a good thing to do that, but you've got to get to a place where you can recognize, hey, I need some help, and that's okay, right? And so for me, it's more about sharing the model and helping people to internalize it, and getting them to a place where they get to practice and they don't need me. If you think about it, anything that's worth its salt should be something that I should be able to internalize. It should be something that's really simple, which this is, and it should help me to make sense out of myself and the world around me. Like when I recognize, oh my God, you're in little me mode, and I'm going to stay down here in authentic me mode and let you vent and help you to come down and come down. The reason that I have such good friends, such a great relationship with my kids, and such a great relationship with my wife is because I know for the most part how to stay below the line. And when I'm below the line, people can trust me. They know that I'm about the good, that I want to help them to solve their problems, that I'm not going to jump up above the line and butt heads with them. It's it is such a different place to be. And
Right.
then I just end up being down in that meaningful place, and I let the protector, go off every now and then, put them back in perspective. And so that's what I'm trying to do is get people to understand the value of this super simple model.
So the idea is to try and bring as many people down under the line because it's a much nicer place to be. And the
Anywhere.
view from
Oh,
there is amazing.
it is.
Exactly right.
It's understanding, it's looking at people who are above the line and getting it and going, God, sorry that that's where they are. I wonder what I could do to help to get them to come down a little bit, even if it's not below the line, just to help to move them in that way. Those are the types of things that all open up to us. And when we're in service of others, man, we are moving down into that uh, flow place, that enlightened place way more often. We're not staying there in and out, in and out. It's all good. But I'm also not going way up into crazy little me land either.
There you go. I mean, you just said it there. It's not about, and like you say, this is the issue with the positive movement. It's not about totally being down here 24/7. Uh, Again, we are human. Things happen around us that, that can distract us from being down here.
No.
So there are going to be things, at the end of the day, that's life.
Yes.
It would be very boring if we were literally, well, I don't know. I'm sure some Tibetan monks
Well, there
probably
wouldn't
spend
be
most of their
there
lives
wouldn't
down
be
there.
there wouldn't be a whole lot of reason to be on the planet if everything was perfect. Honestly.
No, exactly. Well, you've got to have things to compare it. You wouldn't know that it was perfect because you'd not have anything to compare it to, would you? And
And
as
what
and as calm as these Tibetan monks look, I don't think that's how I want to spend my life. So
well, and isn't that the thing? Isn't that, that's what's so interesting to me is like, you know, when you start to look at the value of adversity and then your ability to reframe it and reframe your story, that is 70 or 80% of the way to where you think you want to be. And, the problem is who's got the time? I mean, the Dalai Lama I think he meditates between 3 and 5 hours a day. Like, I think it's awesome he can do that. We know that his life is really lovely in terms of how he perceives the world, but he's still got to deal with China knocking down Tibet and all that stuff. And so,
Three to
it's
five. Who has time for that? I haven't got time for that.
not me. But if what I do is I sit quietly for 5 to 20 minutes a day and just kind of let that protector let all that air out of the balloon, and all of a sudden he's kind of quiet. It makes a difference for me for the whole day. And I'm not enlightened. I hear so many people. I've been meditating for 10 years and I don't understand. And what fascinates me is because their goal is to go from here down to here into enlightenment, they pass by all this meaning in their life. Like, that story about my boy, that has huge meaning for me. Like,
And
it is
him, I'm
really.
sure.
And so when we start to get ourselves down and not try and be in this black and white state of either it's good or it's bad, all of a sudden I start to see the value. Like, I go camping with friends of ours that have um, we all met through our kids' school. Oh my God, the time we have never been an awful word, talked about tough stuff, but you talk to any one of those people that goes camping with us, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's the most amazing time." It's not the best, greatest time ever. It's meaningful. It's
Right.
connected. So I
Ah,
should,
go. Love it. Love it. So, as a recap,
yes.
so quick go over. So the three questions. The three questions.
Yep. Three
Right.
questions. What's the story I'm
One.
telling? Is it serving me in this moment? Remember, I can change it anytime, no matter how old it was, how long ago it happened. I can change it right here and now. And is there a more authentic story I can tell if it's not serving me? Model says above the line of whether it's serving me. No, it's not serving me. Above the line, that's little me land. If it is serving me, I'm in authentic mode. And occasionally I dip down into that place of flow, of deep love, that sort of thing. And that's my enlightened place. And I hop in and out of that on a fairly regular basis. And when I start to move more of my thinking down closer to the line or below it, I happen to end up in that flow state and that enlightened place far more often. And it's
Brilliant.
just
There you
practice.
go. It's not going to happen overnight, peeps, but
No, and we don't want it to.
no, it's all
That
a
is little me
journey.
thinking. We
We've got to
want the
enjoy the
journey,
journey.
the
Enjoy
process.
yeah, it's a process.
Yep.
So, Chris, absolutely fantastic. I love it. I love this. I get to talk to people that are on my wavelength. Um, and fantastic advice. So, if so, do you have a website? Do people get in
Yes.
touch with you?
Couple of things to look at. First of all, if your audience would do me the favor of going to YouTube, searching for Oh, the Stories We Tell, a little blue thought bubble with Oh, the Stories We Tell inside it will pop up. That's my channel. If you would click on that and like it, I would really be really appreciative because I want the vanity URL. I want youtube.com/, Oh, the Stories We Tell. And that's one of the ways to do it. And in return for that, even if you don't do that, go to the Honesty Project playlist on my channel. And what it is it's a woman who had a very rough upbringing who I told about this model. And she called me 6 years later and she said, I've been thinking about that. And I've got some stuff I'd like to work through. How about if we did a one-on-one, and just talked different things, people at work, relationships. That's called the Honesty Project playlist. Please feel free to see this practice in action. It's wonderful. And it's really had an impact on her life, as she will tell you. And then obviously my website, ohthestorieswetell.com, and then Facebook and Instagram at Oh, the Stories We Tell. And I will be happy to work with people one-on-one. That's not free, but I'm happy, if somebody's got a story that they're trying to get right, that third perspective or that outside perspective really helps a lot. So those are the primary ways to get a hold of me. And all I want is to help more people to be below the line more of the time. Not all the
Fantastic.
time.
No, but it's
Wonderful.
nicer down there, isn't it? So
It
thank
is.
you so much for your time, Chris. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank you.
talking to you. I hope the listeners got a lot from that. And it's
Me
just
too.
practice, 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 practice.
Yes. Yes.
There you
Yes.
go. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for listening. I will be back next week.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.